A concerned frown appeared on Jeffrey's forehead. He turned to his father, Jordan, and huffed, "Dad, why don't we just sell off our property and run away with the money? If Kenneth really wants to attack us, we'll be dead." Jordan roared, "Bastard! Sell off our property? If we sell it in a hurry, my billion-dollar empire may cost only $200 million. Do you know that, you idiot? This is my hard work." Liam nodded. "Dad is right. Jeff, Weaver Pharmaceutical is Dad's precious creation. How could we sell it just like that?" Jeffrey raised his hand and slapped Liam. "Shut up, bastard! Do you think you have any say here?" Liam stumbled a few steps back because of the force of the slap, covering his face. He pouted in dismay, but he spruced up and said firmly, "Jeff, I'll still say it even if you slap me. The company is Dad's hard work. We cannot sell it." "I'm gonna fucking kill you!" Jeffrey's face turned into an ugly shade of red. He was about to jump on Liam when Jordan, who had always looked down upon Liam, stepped up and stopped him. "Your brother is right. We must find a way to solve this. You can't just sell everything and take off. It's my legacy that I worked for my whole life." Then Jordan breathed a deep breath and said, "Listen carefully to what I'm about to say. Between you two, whoever can solve this crisis will be elected as the chairman of the Weaver Pharmaceutical. The person who fails in this mission proves that he is unable to lead and manage my company." Jeffrey burst out frantically, "Dad, how can this illegitimate bastard inherit your company?" Jordan growled, "Bastard or not, he is still my son. If you, as the eldest son, are not capable, you'll be abdicated." Liam, who was quietly listening to their commotion, heaved a sigh of relief. He had been under duress in the Weaver family for so many years. After all the humiliation and insults, it was finally his time to rise. Frankly speaking, though, Jordan would not hand over his family business to an illegitimate child. Unfortunately, his eldest son, Jeffrey, was incompetent. He had to find a way to stimulate his enthusiasm and force him to find a solution to the current crisis. While the entire Weaver family was anxiously searching for a cure for Kenneth all over the world, Charlie entered his room after taking a shower. Claire was lying on the bed in her nightgown, kicking her fair and smooth legs casually while browsing her Twitter. On the usual days, she was very busy with her work and was mounted by enormous pressure. Thus, watching nonsensical things on her phone and reading novels in bed had become her greatest leisure. Charlie was just lying down on his makeshift bed on the floor when Claire suddenly screamed and threw her phone away, which landed on Charlie's face. Ignoring the pain, Charlie asked nervously, "Dear, what's wrong?" Claire's face twisted into a grimace. "Yikes, I just saw a video on Twitter. It's very disgusting." Charlie asked curiously, "What is it? Let me see how disgusting it is." He went to grab her phone that had fallen on the floor. Claire shrieked again. "Ugh, don't look, it's disgusting." "How disgusting could it be? You've made me very curious." Then he turned on the screen and glanced at it, and he was stunned by what he saw. It was Keon Webb, the creep who loved to psychologically manipulate girls. Looking at his hysterical reaction in the video, it was confirmed that Charlie's hypnosis had worked. It was truly a pleasure to see him go crazy. He was basically finished for the rest of his life since he had to eat shit every hour. Now, he wouldn't have the time to ruin another girl's life ever again. Charlie locked the screen and said to Claire with a smile, "I've heard of this guy." "Really?" Claire asked in surprise. "How? From where did you hear of him?" "He is a very bad and nasty guy who loves to psychologically manipulate girls and force them to inflict self-harm and commit suicide for his own pleasure." Charlie began recounting Keon's criminal history to Claire. Claire huffed furiously after listening to Charlie. "Oh my goodness, what a bastard! Why would he do that to other people's daughters?" Charlie said sincerely. "Well, frankly, there are always scumbags like him who like to hurt others for pleasure. They are the useless dregs of society. Sooner or later, karma will bite them back." Claire nodded with a satisfied smile. "It looks like his karma has bitten him already." Claire was a little traumatized by the horrifying video and decided not to check her phone anymore, saying as she stretched her body, I'm so sleepy. Charlie, please charge my phone. Thanks, I'll go to sleep first." "Okay." Charlie nodded and charged her phone. In the middle of the night, just as Charlie was about to fall asleep, he felt the vibration of his phone from under his pillow. He turned on the phone, and saw that it was a notification of an incoming message from Orville. Master Wade, there are a few Japanese waiting in ambush at the Serene World Clinic. I think they want to attack Dr. Simmons. Charlie replied, I think they are aiming for his medicine. Damn it! Orville burst out in rage. Those scumbags are trying to get their hands on the magical elixir. Master Wade, one command from you and I'll take my boys to catch them, drag them back to my kennel, chop them up, and feed them to the Tibetan Mastiff. Don't, Charlie said as he grinned. They have powerful backing. They are Ichiro Kobayashi's men, the eldest son of Kobayashi Pharma. I'm going to dig a big trap for him. You just let your boys secretly protect Dr. Simmons. Let them take all the medicine they want. I specially prepared it for them anyway. To set a trap for Ichiro Kobayashi, Charlie had refined a few terminal lucidity pills and given them to Douglas. The amazing thing about this pill was it could make a person alive and well for an hour or two, no matter how terminally ill the person was, even if he or she was on the verge of death. However, it came with a terrible consequence, too. After those hours of being alive, they would die immediately beyond rescue. In truth, the pill was not poisonous. It was more like a euthanasia remedy for a person to express his or her dying will before taking the last breath. The effect of the pill was to overdraw all the person's vitality for those 2 hours of lucidity. By doing so, the person could make the final arrangements for the property, funeral affairs, and whatnot. In ancient times, the pill was specially formulated for emperors and generals which would be ready by their bed as they were dying. When they took the pill, it would give them precious time to make crucial orders for the sake of their nation and family. Eventually, the pill had become useless in modern times. Also, the pill was quite hazardous as the same effect would take place even if a healthy person were to consume it. He or she would still die 2 hours after taking the pill. Thus, in modern times, it was more or less like a poison. Charlie had seen the pill in the Nine Heavens Profound book and had not taken it seriously since he had deemed it useless. However, this time the pill had finally come in handy. It could be a powerful trap for Ichiro Kobayashi. After giving instructions to Orville, Charlie called Isaac once again. As soon as the call was connected, Charlie told him immediately, after Ichiro succeeds tonight, he'll definitely try to escape from the country in the shortest time possible tonight. Therefore, you should set up a trap for him in Oris Hill. Anyone in his group should be allowed to escape except for him. Isaac replied immediately, Don't worry, Mr. Wade. I've already made all the necessary arrangements. I'll definitely intercept Ichiro before he manages to escape. After that, Isaac also promised, I'll make sure that the medicine that Ichiro stole from Douglas will never be taken out of the country. No, Charlie said hurriedly. I want them to take the medicine back to Japan. Remember that the medicine should leave the country, but Ichiro must not be allowed to leave the country. Isaac hurriedly replied, Mr. Wade, I understand. Don't worry, I won't let Ichiro escape so easily. Okay, Charlie smiled slightly before he said, After capturing Ichiro, please find me a concealed and secluded location for me to meet up with him and take care of him in person. Okay, Mr. Wade. Ichiro did not know that there was already a trap carefully laid out for him at this time. He was simply sitting in his Maybach parked opposite Serene World Clinic, and several of his men were already hiding around the building, ready to pounce at any time. His father, Masao Kobayashi, had already been bedridden and paralyzed for the past 3 years. Moreover, his father had even given some instructions to him and his brother, Jiro Kobayashi, ever since he became paraplegic. According to his father, whoever made the greatest contributions to Kobayashi Pharma would be able to inherit his position as chairman of the company. His younger brother, Jiro, was an expert in pharmaceutics who had already been majoring and studying medicine for many years. In the past few years, Jiro had created and concocted many new types of medicine for his family, and the sales for his medicine were all going very well. Therefore, his father really looked very highly upon him. In contrast, Ichiro was a little upset because he was not a pharmaceutical student, but instead, he had majored in finance. This kind of person was technically more suited for dealing in business and real estates, but he was really not cut out for the pharmaceutical industry. Only people who really understood medicine could come up with good medication and truly understand the medical market. If he came up with a magical pill, then he could definitely make a lot of money just by relying on word of mouth from consumers. However, if the medicine had little to no effect at all, It would be useless no matter how many advertisements the company came up with. After trying it out the first time, the consumers would never try it a second time. Therefore, Ichiro's younger brother, Jiro, stood a much greater chance of succession in the family business, even though he was the eldest son. As a last resort, Ichiro decided to make a trip to Oros Hill to participate in the Chinese Medicine Expo. He wanted to see if he could discover any excellent prescriptions that he could bring back to Japan for his family to use. If he could make a remarkable achievement, then he would at least stand a chance to succeed his father. When he heard that the genius doctor, Dr. Simmons, who had cured a patient with severe paraplegia not too long ago, also happened to be at the Chinese Medicine Expo, he was really extremely excited. If he could get his hands on the prescription, not only would he be able to cure his father completely then, but he would definitely be able to create a huge business opportunity for his family. It would even be possible for him to grow and develop Kobayashi Pharma by several folds. Therefore, Ichiro was pinning his future on that night's events. As he thought about this, Ichiro, who was extremely excited, quickly made a phone call to his father. His father, who was still paralyzed in bed, connected the call as soon as he received it. "Ichiro, where have you been the past few days? Why haven't you come to see me at all?" Ichiro hurriedly replied, "Dad, I am seeking medicine for you in Oros Hill. I heard that there's a genius doctor here who cured a patient with severe paraplegia not too long ago." "Is that true?" Masao asked in surprise. "Is there really such a magical doctor in Oros Hill who would be able to cure severe paraplegia?" "Yes," Ichiro replied. "I've already checked the hospital records and confirmed that the patient has been cured of his severe paraplegia. I also asked around and everyone confirmed that the genius doctor was in fact the one who cured the patient with just half a magical pill." Half a magical pill? Masao was very excited at this time. For the past 3 years, he had been in extreme pain, and he had been suffering a lot because he had been paralyzed in bed. He had been a famous entrepreneur, and he had endless wealth, but he was suddenly paralyzed in bed. Just like that, he lost the opportunity to enjoy himself and live his life, and that made him feel really miserable. In the past few days, he had been searching for various different ways to cure himself. But in this world, there was absolutely no medicine to cure severe paraplegia, and it was completely impossible to restore a paralyzed patient to his original condition. Even through intense physical therapy, it would be very difficult for the patient to stand up, let alone walk and live his life like an ordinary person. However, when Masao heard his son saying that the genius doctor in Oros Hill had a form of superb medical treatment to cure severe paraplegia, he became very expectant, and he was yearning for the cure. Masao exclaimed excitedly, "Ichiro, you have to buy this magical medicine back for me, even if it's going to cost you $100 million. Ichiro hurriedly explained, "Dad, I don't know what's wrong with the genius doctor, but he's simply unwilling to sell me the medicine. However, there's nothing you need to worry about because I'm already prepared to steal the medicine from him and send it to Japan tonight, just so you can take the medicine as soon as possible." After that, Ichiro continued speaking. "By the way, Dad, I heard that the genius doctor has more than just one of these magical pills. After eating one of the pills, we can get our team of researchers and analysts to study the ingredients in the magical pill and figure out its composition. After that, Kobayashi Pharma will be able to develop this medicine and will definitely become the world's top pharmaceutical company then. We'll bring back and gain plenty of glory for Japan." "Good! Excellent work!" Masao replied excitedly. "You really deserve to be called my filial son. Make sure that you get this beautifully done for me as soon as possible." Ichiro replied, "Don't worry, Dad. My private plane is already waiting for me at Oros Airport. After taking the medicine, I'll leave a few people behind before I fly back to Japan immediately. As long as I get into my private plane successfully, I will be able to fly back to Tokyo without any interference from anyone in Oros Hill." Masao said excitedly, "In that case, you will be able to arrive in Tokyo just 3 hours after the plane takes off. I can take this magical pill in less than 4 hours. I'll finally have an opportunity to stand up again." Ichiro burst into tears as he said, "Dad, this is the blessing of Amaterasu. You'll definitely enjoy endless glory, wealth, and a life free from illnesses." "Okay," Masao replied excitedly before he reminded Ichiro, "Ichiro, you should be very careful and make sure you don't miss your flight. I will be waiting for your good news in Tokyo. Ichiro quickly said, Dad, you can rest assured. I'll definitely make it home with the magical pill, so you'll be able to stand on your own 2 feet again. Ichiro felt that he was going crazy after hanging up the phone because he was simply too excited. If he could get his hands on the magical pill, then he would definitely end up becoming the successor of Kobayashi Pharma. Coming to Orus Hill was indeed a good bargain this time. At this time, Ichiro's assistant, who was seated next to him in the Maybach, said, Mr. Kobayashi, it is already 11 o'clock. Should we do it now? Ichiro nodded before he sneered and said, Do it! The assistant quickly took out his walkie-talkie and ordered, Do it now! As soon as the voice fell, 6 men quickly sneaked into Douglas' Serene World Clinic. Tonight, Douglas was sleeping over in the small bedroom in Serene World Clinic. In fact, Douglas had been patiently waiting for the Japanese to come for him at this time. However, to be safe, he arranged for his granddaughter, Zyla, to stay at the hotel tonight. After entering Serene World Clinic, the 6 men immediately came into Douglas' bedroom, and they saw Douglas lying on bed at this time. One of the men immediately covered his mouth before he pointed a pistol at his temple and said, Do not scream! If you cooperate with us obediently, we will spare your life. Douglas pretended to panic, and he quickly asked, What are you trying to do? Hand over the magical pills to us, the man in black replied coldly. Otherwise, I will shoot you. Douglas trembled in fright before he blurted out, Don't shoot, don't shoot. I'll give it to you. After that, Douglas reached his hands into the small pocket inside his pajamas before he took out a very small wooden box. The wooden box carried Douglas' body temperature with him, and since it was kept on his body at all times, this proved how precious the pills were to him. The other party quickly opened the wooden box as soon as he took it in his hand, and he saw 4 pills sitting quietly inside the box. He was so excited, and he immediately reported his findings to Ichiro through his walkie-talkie. Mr. Kobayashi, we found 4 of the magical pills. 4? That's fantastic, Ichiro replied excitedly. Hurry up and pass the magical pills over to me. The man asked once again. What about this old man? Ichiro replied, Just knock him out. We only need a 1-hour head start and we'll definitely succeed in our plan. Okay? After that, the other party immediately knocked Douglas unconscious with his pistol, and Douglas passed out immediately. At this time, many of Orvel's most professional men were actually watching the entire scene in secret. If the other party really intended to harm Douglas' life, then they would have followed Charlie's instructions and acted on it immediately. However, since the other party did not mean to hurt the old man at all, then Douglas would have to suffer a little. Douglas fell unconscious after getting hit with the butt of the pistol, but fortunately, there was no danger to his life. After the men succeeded, they quickly withdrew from Serene World Clinic. One of the men hurried over to the Maybach that was parked on the opposite side of the road. As soon as the car window was rolled down, he hurriedly handed the small wooden box over to Ichiro and said, Mr. Kobayashi, here's the medicine. Ichiro could not wait to open the wooden box, and as soon as he glanced at it, he was shaking with excitement when he smelled the strong fragrance of the medicinal herbs. Great, Ichiro replied before he said, Head straight to Orus Airport. We're leaving for Tokyo immediately. After that, he told the driver, Drive now. Head to the airport as fast as you can. Then Ichiro turned around and told his assistant, Notify the crew to prepare for takeoff immediately. I want the plane to take off without any delays as soon as I arrive at the airport. If anyone finds out about this matter and tries to stop our plane from taking off, then everything will be over. His assistant smiled before he said, Don't worry too much, Mr. Kobayashi. I don't think anyone in Orus Hill will be able to respond so quickly. We'll take half an hour at most to reach the airport. After that, getting through the security check will be very quick for you since you'll be using the VIP passage. We should be able to take off within an hour. At that time, not even God will be able to stop us. Ichiro's Maybach immediately drove away from Serene World Clinic, and they headed on the expressway all the way to the airport immediately. They were planning to arrive at the airport as quickly as possible before they boarded the plane to return to Tokyo. Ichiro's excitement increased rapidly along the way. He repeatedly looked at the 4 magical pills before he muttered to himself, The Kobayashi family will be able to rely on this magical pill to stand up strong and powerful all over the world. At that time, I'll definitely become the chairman of Kobayashi Pharma. The Maybach whizzed all the way and arrived at Oris Airport very quickly. As soon as the car stopped at the entrance of the airport, Ichiro was about to get out of the car to rush into the airport at the fastest speed. However, as soon as he got out of the car, 8 off-road Mercedes-Benzes drove over before they surrounded his Maybach. Very soon, 30 bodyguards dressed in black stepped out of the 8 cars. These people were all masters who had been carefully trained by Isaac, and each of them had extraordinary strength and physique. Isaac stepped out from one of the off-road Mercedes-Benzes before he looked coldly at Ichiro and said, "Mr. Kobayashi, our young lord would like to invite you to come over for a chat." "Your young lord?" Ichiro asked nervously as he hid the magical pills in his pocket. "Who's your young lord? Do you know who I am? I'm the vice chairman of Kobayashi Pharma." Isaac stretched out his hand and patted Ichiro on his face before he replied indifferently, "Kobayashi Pharma is a Japanese company, and we're in Oris Hill. Why are you pretending to be that great or powerful? Japan and Oris Hill are so far apart and separated by the seas. So, why are you trying to tell me who you are now?" Ichiro suddenly became very nervous. He did not know the reason why these people were trying to stop him. Was it because of the magical pills, or was it because of something else? If it was really because of the magical pills, then he would really be in a very dangerous situation right now. After all, the other group of people looked very strong and capable. If they refused to let him go, he would definitely not be able to escape. However, if they were looking for him for some other reasons, then did that mean that he could still send the medicine back to Japan first? As he thought about this, Ichiro pretended to be calm as he asked, "Who's your young lord?" Isaac replied lightly, "Mr. Kobayashi. Kobayashi Pharma has already plagiarized so many ancient Chinese prescriptions, so I guess your family probably has a good understanding of the situation in our country. Have you ever heard of the Wade family from East Cliff?" "The Wade family?" Ichiro was utterly shocked at this time. How could he possibly not hear of the Wade family from East Cliff? After all, it was the most powerful family in this country, and their family's strength also ranked top in the world. Even the major conglomerates in Japan could not even be compared to the Wade family, not to mention a family who was just running a small pharmaceutical company like himself. Ichiro panicked all of a sudden, and he blurted out, "May I know why your young lord is looking for me?" Isaac replied lightly, "If there's anything you need to find out, you'll know after you come with me." Ichiro asked nervously, "And if I refuse to come with you?" Isaac smiled faintly before he took out a pistol from his pocket and said, "Since our young lord has instructed me to bring you to him, if I can't bring you there alive, then the least I could do is to bring your dead body to him." Ichiro was very worried, but he was even more concerned whether he could send the magical pills to Tokyo first. This was the key to laying his foundation in his family. As he thought about this, he asked tentatively, "May I go with you on my own so that my assistant can head back to Japan now? There are a lot of important things that he has to deal with." Isaac laughed before he said generously, "Of course, everyone is allowed to leave except for you." Ichiro heaved a huge sigh of relief, and he quietly handed the small wooden box over to his assistant. After that, he patted his shoulder gently before he said, "You should take the plane back to Tokyo first. Tell my father that I'm fine and that I'll go back and see him soon." Ichiro handed the stolen magical pills over to his assistant, and he was finally relieved after watching his assistant enter the airport without any problem. After that, Ichiro asked Isaac, "Where is your young lord?" Isaac replied lightly, "You'll know once you come with me." After he was done speaking, he signaled at the people around him before they dragged Ichiro over to the nearest off-road Mercedes-Benz immediately. The convoy quickly left the airport as they headed towards the dog farm opened by Orville in the suburbs. On the way to the dog farm, Isaac called Charlie before he said, "Mr. Wade, Ichiro is in my hands now. I'm bringing him over to Orville Dog Farm now. If you want to come over, I will send someone over to pick you up immediately." Charlie glanced at Claire, who was fast asleep at this time, before he replied, "All right then. Arrange for a car to pick me up from outside my house in 5 minutes." After making the pearl and clam bracelet for Claire that was worth hundreds of millions of dollars, Claire was finally able to sleep very well after wearing it. Therefore, she would never wake up in the middle of the night no matter what happened. Charlie was not worried that Claire would find out that he had snuck out in the middle of the night. About 5 minutes later, Charlie walked out of the house. There was already a Rolls-Royce parked outside at this time. Even though Charlie had never met the driver before, the driver recognized him immediately, and he quickly opened the door for Charlie as he said respectfully, "Mr. Wade, please." Charlie nodded and got into the car before they headed out of the city. When Charlie finally arrived at Orville's dog farm, Isaac was already there. This was Charlie's first visit to Orville Dog Farm, even though he had already heard of this place for a long time. The location of the dog farm was very secluded and large in scale. As soon as he stepped out of the call, Charlie could hear countless dogs barking and growling. Moreover, the voices of these dogs were very low and heavy, and it seemed as though they were all large dogs. It was rumored that the reason why Orville owned this dog farm was mainly to raise, breed, and train some fighting dogs for the underground dog fighting event. Some people in the underworld were obsessed with dog fighting, and they would often organize competitions and bet tens of millions of dollars on the dogs that they liked. In addition to raising dogs, Orville also regarded this as a torture ground. If there were anyone that he needed gone from this world, he would simply send them here to become rations for the vicious fighting dogs. There was a 3-story building in the yard of the dog farm, and this building was usually used by the staff as their office and resting ground. There was also a warehouse for storing dog food in the building and a secret room that Orville usually used for lynching. At this time, Ichiro was hung on a frame in the dark with his hands completely tied up. The underworld of Oris Hill was not much different compared to the underworld in Hong Kong or Taiwan. It had extremely strict rules and regulations, and these rules were still the same as those used by mobsters and gang members from over 100 years ago. Once the interests of the gang was violated, the first thing that the culprit would face was lynching. At this time, the 6 men dressed in black who Ichiro had sent to rob Douglas of the magical pills were also detained here. When Ichiro saw the 6 men, he was really frightened. He realized that this matter might actually have something to do with the magical pills. He could not help but wonder what these people were going to do to him now that he had already sent the magical pills back to Japan. At this time, Charlie stepped into the building. Isaac greeted him respectfully with a bow, saying, "Mr. Wade, Ichiro and his 6 men are all here." Charlie nodded slightly before he looked at Ichiro. After that, he smiled as he said, "Mr. Kobayashi, it seems as though we finally meet again." No way, you are—" Ichiro suddenly remembered Charlie. When Ichiro was asking Douglas for the prescription for the magical pill at the Chinese Medicine Expo, Charlie was right there. In fact, Ichiro initially thought that he was simply Douglas' subordinate or assistant at that time. Unexpectedly, he actually turned out to be the young lord of the Wade family. Charlie looked at Ichiro, who was hoisted up in the air, before he said in a cold manner, "Mr. Kobayashi, you're really very courageous. Who gave you the audacity to send men to rob an old man of his magical pills? Are you sick and tired of living?" Ichiro panicked when he heard this, and he blurted out immediately, "Mr. Wade, this is all just a big misunderstanding." "Misunderstanding?" Charlie asked as he pointed at the 6 men dressed in black who were tied up on the ground next to him. "Don't these 6 men belong to you?" Ichiro hurriedly shook his head. "No! I don't know them at all!" Charlie nodded before he looked at the 6 men and asked them, "Do you know this man, then?" The 6 men had a blank expression on their faces. They looked as if they could not speak their language at all. Isaac stepped forward at this time before he spoke to them in Japanese. At this time, the 6 men also shook their heads as they said a lot of words. Very soon, Isaac told Charlie, "Mr. Wade, they said that they do not know this man at all." "Oh." Charlie nodded before he said lightly, "Since they don't know each other, then just pick one of them before chopping them up alive. After that, you can feed him to the dogs before asking the remaining 5 people again." "Okay." Isaac immediately explained Charlie's words to the 6 men in Japanese, and the 6 men were all shocked and dumbfounded at this time. They could not believe it. Charlie had simply asked them one single sentence, and he was actually going to chop them up and feed them to the dogs? Did he really have that much guts? At this time, Charlie told Orville, "Orville, since you're more familiar with this place, take these 6 men out and weigh them one by one. After that, I want you to choose the heaviest one to chop up and feed to the dogs. Let the 5 of them observe everything before you bring them back here for further questioning." Orville asked respectfully, "Mr. Wade, what if they confess to their crime in advance?" Charlie replied lightly, "It's already too late now. No matter what it is, we're going to feed all of them to the dogs tonight." Ichiro was in utter shock at this time. His only difference from his 6 men was that he could understand their language, and he immediately understood the meaning behind Charlie's words. He was going to chop up a living person and feed him to the dogs? Was the young lord of the Wade family really so cruel? What if he wanted to chop him up too? At this time, Orville and his men brought the 6 unknown men out of the building. About 10 minutes later, Ichiro could hear the dogs in the dog farm howling and growling. After that, the remaining 5 men were dragged back into the building. The 5 men were so frightened that they were all convulsing in a violent manner. As soon as they entered the building, the 5 people went crazy, and they started yelling at Ichiro in Japanese. Isaac quickly translated what they were saying to Charlie. "Mr. Wade, these people are telling Ichiro that they saw their companion being chopped alive and fed to the dogs." Charlie nodded before he looked at Ichiro, who was so scared that he was about to pass out any time. After that, Charlie said coldly, "Ichiro Kobayashi, I'm going to give you one last chance. You better be honest with me now. Otherwise, you'll suffer the same fate as that man earlier." Even though Ichiro really wanted to contribute to his family, he did not base it on the premise that he would be losing his life because of it. He was in deep shock when he realized that Charlie might actually kill and dispose of his body tonight. Therefore, he hurriedly pleaded, "Mr. Wade, I'll admit it. I'll tell you everything. I was the one who paid and hired them to rob Dr. Simmons of his magical pills. Please forgive me. Just name me a price and I'll be more than willing to pay for it." Charlie asked with a black face, "Where's the medicine now?" Ichiro replied, "My assistant brought the medicine with him to the airport." Charlie asked again, "Has the plane taken off?" Ichiro nodded repeatedly. "Yes, it should have already taken off by now, and it should have gone out of Oris Hill's airspace by now." Charlie gritted his teeth before he said, "How dare you rob us of the medicine left behind by our ancestors? Good, very good. Since your man has already brought our medicine back to Japan with him, then you will leave your life behind in this country." Ichiro was so scared that he started crying out loud as soon as he heard Charlie's words. He was not a bad person, but he was just a rich young lord who wanted to honor his own family based on what he could do for them. Now, he had actually been caught by Charlie and was trapped in a dog farm, possibly being turned into delicious food in the mouth of countless evil dogs at any time. Ichiro was naturally afraid and feeling very regretful at this time. He cried as he begged Charlie, "Mr. Wade, I'm begging you now. Please just give me a number. No matter how much you ask for, I'm willing to pay you. Otherwise, why don't I call my father and ask him to inform the crew to ask the plane to turn around and return to Arus Hill immediately? I will return the magical pill to you directly. Would that be fine with you?" Charlie replied, "Are you still trying to lie to me at a time like this? Do you really take me for a fool? I know that many companies have very advanced component analysis equipment. After putting a medicine into the equipment, you'll be able to analyze all the components and ingredients in a medicinal product in a few minutes' time. Kobayashi Pharma is a big pharmaceutical company, and you definitely own such an instrument, right?" Ichiro nodded as he cried, "Yes, we do own that kind of equipment. However, I did not bring it along with me to Oris Hill. So, Mr. Wade, you can rest assured that as long as the magical pills are not sent to the Kobayashi Pharma laboratory, we won't be able to obtain a list of its ingredients." Charlie sneered before he replied, "Do you really think that I'll believe what you say? Who knows if you've already equipped the equipment in your plane? Perhaps you already have a list of all the ingredients to make up the magical pills now. You could even have instructed your man to scrape off a little of the magical pill because just a little of the powder itself would be sufficient for you to study and analyze the ingredients." Ichiro continued crying as he said, "Mr. Wade, I'll use my personality and character to vouch that I'm not lying." Charlie gave him a slap across his face as he cursed at him. "You're a thief and a robber, and you actually dare to talk about your personality and character in front of me?" Ichiro was at a loss for words. Charlie was right. He was indeed a thief and a robber, and it was really ironic for him to be talking about his personality and character at this time. Ichiro was so scared that he started crying out loud as soon as he heard Charlie's words. He was not a bad person, but he was just a rich young lord who wanted to honor his own family based on what he could do for them. Now, he had actually been caught by Charlie and was trapped in a dog farm, possibly being turned into delicious food in the mouth of countless evil dogs at any time. Ichiro was naturally afraid and feeling very regretful at this time. He cried as he begged Charlie, "Mr. Wade, I'm begging you now. Please just give me a number. No matter how much you ask for, I'm willing to pay you. Otherwise, why don't I call my father and ask him to inform the crew to ask the plane to turn around and return to Arus Hill immediately? I will return the magical pill to you directly. Would that be fine with you?" Charlie replied, "Are you still trying to lie to me at a time like this? Do you really take me for a fool? I know that many companies have very advanced component analysis equipment. After putting a medicine into the equipment, you'll be able to analyze all the components and ingredients in a medicinal product in a few minutes' time. Kobayashi Pharma is a big pharmaceutical company, and you definitely own such an instrument, right?" Ichiro nodded as he cried, "Yes, we do own that kind of equipment. However, I did not bring it along with me to Arus Hill. So, Mr. Wade, you can rest assured that as long as the magical pills are not sent to the Kobayashi Pharma laboratory, we won't be able to obtain a list of its ingredients." Charlie sneered before he replied, "Do you really think that I'll believe what you say? Who knows if you've already equipped the equipment in your plane? Perhaps you already have a list of all the ingredients to make up the magical pills now. You could even have instructed your man to scrape off a little of the magical pill because just a little of the powder itself would be sufficient for you to study and analyze the ingredients." Ichiro continued crying as he said, "Mr. Wade, I'll use my personality and character to vouch that I'm not lying." Charlie gave him a slap across his face as he cursed at him. "You're a thief and a robber, and you actually dare to talk about your personality and character in front of me?" Ichiro was at a loss for words. Charlie was right. He was indeed a thief and a robber, and it was really ironic for him to be talking about his personality and character at this time. Ichiro hurriedly asked, "Mr. Wade, please tell me what I can do then. You can come up with a solution for this matter, and as long as it is within my ability, I will definitely fulfill your request." Charlie replied, "In fact, it's actually very simple. Since you've stolen our magical pill, then I can only assume that you have already gotten the ingredients and formula for the pill. It would be better for you to pay us directly for the prescription of the magical pills then." Ichiro nodded and agreed immediately. "No problem, absolutely no problem. Mr. Wade, please name me a price so I can report this to my family immediately." At this time, Charlie replied indifferently, $10 billion. Otherwise, not only will I kill you and feed you to the dogs, but I will also expose the fact that someone from Kobayashi Pharma stole someone else's prescription on international grounds. At that time, Kobayashi Pharma's reputation will definitely be damaged all over the world. Ichiro was completely taken aback and he blurted out, "Mr. Wade, $10 billion is too much. We really do not have so much money." "You're still trying to bargain with me at a time like this?" Charlie asked coldly. "I've already looked into Kobayashi Pharma's background. I saw that your company is doing very well and you enjoyed a net profit of $2 billion just 1 year ago. Furthermore, I even found out that you have successfully borrowed a large sum of money from the bank to build Asia's largest production base in Osaka, Japan. I believe all that money must be sitting in Kobayashi Pharma's bank account right now, am I right?" Ichiro trembled as he explained, "Mr. Wade, to tell you the truth, that money is really important to Kobayashi Pharma. Moreover, that money is under my father's control, and I have no access to it at all." Charlie nodded before he said, "All right then. You can call your father and tell him all about this now." After that, Charlie said to Isaac, "Loosen his right hand and pass him the cell phone." Isaac personally released Ichiro's right hand before he handed his cell phone over to him. Ichiro had to muster up his courage to call his father. At this time, Masao was anxiously waiting for the magical pills to arrive in Tokyo. He was a very impatient person, and he had already asked his family to hire an ambulance to take him directly to the airport so he could wait there instead. The Kobayashi family was very reputable in Tokyo. They even had a private independent hangar in Tokyo Airport for their private jet. Besides that, there was also a very high-end lounge in this hangar, which was owned by the Kobayashi family. Therefore, Masao took his second son, Jiro, to the airport as he waited for the magical pills to arrive in Tokyo. At this time, he suddenly received a phone call from Ichiro. Masao hurriedly asked, "Ichiro, I heard that you did not board that plane when it took off earlier. Where are you now?" Ichiro hurriedly replied, "Dad, I was captured by the young lord of the Wade family in Eastcliff. He accused me of stealing the magical pills and their prescription. Now he wants us to buy the patent for the prescription of the magical pill for $10 billion. Otherwise, not only will he take my life, but he will also expose Kobayashi Pharma's theft of prescriptions." "What?" Masao blurted out immediately as he yelled, "Asshole! How could you be so careless in handling your own affairs?" Ichiro cried out, "Dad, I was very careful and meticulous, but I don't know how I was discovered by them. You have to save me or I'm really going to die tonight." Masao replied coldly, $10 billion is simply a fantasy. I will never agree to that. I can still accept it if they agree to accept $1 billion. Isaac had been translating the entire conversation for Charlie all this while. As soon as he heard Masao's words, he sneered as he said, "Mr. Masao Kobayashi, with all due respect, the magical pills that you've stolen from us is a magical medicine with strong repairing and restoration ability. You'll be able to cure your severe paraplegia and also other similar diseases in the market. If you put the drug out on the market, you'd definitely be able to make at least $10 billion in a year. This is, in fact, a very good bargain for you. Do you understand me?" Masao snorted before he said, "How would I know if this medicine is as godly as you make it out to be?" Charlie replied, "Isn't it very simple? The magical pills will land in Tokyo in less than an hour. I heard that you're paralyzed and bedridden now. After taking our medicine, you'll definitely be able to recover within 10 minutes at most. After personally experiencing the effects of the medicine, you should pay us the $10 billion immediately. Otherwise, I will expose the fact that your son stole a medicine and prescription from others to the world, and Kobayashi Pharma's reputation will definitely be ruined then." After that, Charlie continued, "Oh, and your son will also have to die then." Masao felt a little nervous at this time. His son was caught red-handed, and the other party had evidence of him stealing the medicine. If he refused to cooperate with him, then Kobayashi Pharma would definitely be cast aside by everyone in the world once the truth is exposed. When that time comes, the Japanese government will also ban the production of these magical pills in compliance with international law. That way, he would only be on the losing end. Moreover, it was also possible that he would be costing his son his life. On the other hand, if the medicine was really so effective, then $10 billion was in fact not a lot of money. Even if he paid $10 billion to Charlie, he would easily be able to earn that money back within a year. He would start making profits the year after that. As he thought about this, Masao replied immediately, "Okay. If your magical pill really cures me of my severe paraplegia and restores me to my previous health condition, then I will give you $10 billion to buy this prescription from you exclusively."